Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're seeing this. This is Yisrael Levitt here from beautiful, picturesque, historic Hudson, Wisconsin, and at Beth Emmanuel Messianic Synagogue. And we're here in conjunction with Virtual Kollel. And today we're going to be studying in the Book of Ruth, preparing for the upcoming holiday of Shavuot. And so just momentarily, we'll have some people join us here. And today is a very auspicious, special day, as it is the 40th day of the Omer. So thanks so much for joining us. If you're joining us live, I apologize for the little bit of the lateness here. Technical difficulties, unfortunately, again. But I think we got them worked out here. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and ask a few people maybe to locally here to go ahead and get on with us in a moment. So you might hear a little bit of an interruption as we go through our study. So let's go ahead and see if I can share with you guys my here. Hopefully we'll be able to do that just like able to do yesterday. And let's see, I think you guys should be able to see everything here. Necessarily, there's going to be a little bit of inception there. Okay, so hopefully you should be able to see everything here. And so what we're doing is we're working through Ruth. We're in chapter 2, and yesterday we ended up in verse 7. So let's go ahead and just briefly review. I'll just go through everything really quickly. Actually, let's go through it in English here. Be pulling up momentarily here. Here we go. And so now Naomi had a kinsman redeemer, a kinsman of her husband, a mighty man of valor of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, I will go now to the field, and I will glean among the ears of grain after someone whom I will please. And she said, go, my daughter. So after someone whom I will please right here. So we have, go ahead and hop on and just see if everything's okay.
Yeah.
Everything's good?
Yeah.
All right. So excuse the interruption here, everybody. Okay, so just wanted to double check that you guys can see everything and everything. So after someone who I will please, so this kind of tells us that, as we said yesterday, that she doesn't really know that she has a right as one of the poor and destitute in Eretz Yisrael and the land of Israel to be able to go ahead and collect. And so basically she is, gets there early, as we'll see in a moment, and she's, thinking that she has to be able to the person who's the owner of the field. And she went and she came and she gleaned in the field, and we talked about some of that language yesterday. After the reapers, and her chance was to come to the field that belonged to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came to Bethlehem, and he said to the reapers, may the Lord be with you. And they said to him, the Lord bless you. So it just so happened that Boaz came to the field, and looks like he came between midday and the earliest part of the day, as we'll see in just a moment. Ahead and see something right here. Looks like it's going to be okay. Then Boaz said to his servant who stood over the reapers, to whom does this maiden belong? And the servant in charge of the reapers answered and said, she is a Moabite maiden with Naomi from the fields of Moab. Now let's go ahead and look at the Hebrew right here, just because it's going to play into to what we're going to do today. Vayomar na'ara Moaviyah Ki hashava im no'ami mitzidei Moab. And so before he asks, who is this na'ara up here, as you can see, the word na'ara meaning young girl. And so here basically he says, oh, she's a Moabite who came with Naomi. And so now, is he talking about she's the Moabite? He doesn't say the Moabite, ha na'ara ha-Moaviyah, but basically he says she's a Moabite. And now Boaz doesn't ask any further information. as we'll see in a moment. So it seems the Boaz of her. Let's see here. Testing. Oh, looks like we got sound. Okay, so sorry about that. It looks like the sound was not working. So Aaron, go ahead and just let me know. I'll go ahead and put the sound on my phone, so you can just text me if the sound's out. So I'll go ahead and put the sound, so I'll hear a text. Okay, so it looks like we're working, and you should be able to see two of me, one up here in the corner maybe, and then one here on the camera. So let's go ahead and let me continue sharing my screen with you guys, and hopefully, God willing, this will all work. Okay. Just momentarily a little bit of inception. Present to everyone. Okay. Let's go ahead and go back. Here we were in the Hebrew and English. Okay, so is basically, if Boaz is a relative of Naomi, why doesn't he say, hey, why doesn't he? And it's unclear exactly why that's the case. So perhaps one reason is maybe he didn't know they were in town. That's door number one. Door number two is, perhaps she's in town, but he doesn't know now that they're destitute. So that could be door number two. Door number three, perhaps he has his own reason why. That's just, nothing's clear in the text, but basically what's happening is, for sure, they're destitute, and for sure we know that Boaz didn't take them in. So now let's go ahead and let's see here. Now it seems that he doesn't know who is, and so either he doesn't know who she is, or he doesn't know that she's the Moabite who is Naomi's daughter-in-law. And so here, what does he say? He says, don't go to another field. He says this phrase, and this is a very pregnant phrase. He says, "V'cho tidbakin im na'arotai." Okay, so he says, and here you shall stay with my maidens. And let's go ahead and continue on, and I want to make some comments on that phrase. It says, "Enaich basadeh asher yiksarun, v'halacht achreichen, halo tziviti et naharim, levilti nag'ech mitzamit halacht el hakelim v'shitzis hanarim." And so he says, your eyes shall be on the field that they reap, and you shall follow them. Have I not ordered the youths not to touch you? And if you are thirsty, you may go to the vessels and drink from that which the youths draw. So it seems like there's a couple things happening here. So number one, it seems that there are male and female reapers, and so he tells Ruth to go ahead and go with the female harvesters. Also, number two, he assures her that the other male harvesters will kind of leave her alone. Ostensibly, she's very beautiful. Basically saying, look, they're not going to hit on you. They're not going to try anything. Don't worry. You're going to be under my protection. Obviously, this is something that he might have told to his na'ar, to his, it says na'ar ala kotzrim, his servant that's in charge of all the harvesters. And so also he says, if you're thirsty, you can go ahead and drink. So basically, what is he doing? He's elevating her to the status of one of his workers, one of the harvesters. So no longer is she just who's collecting the leftovers and performing leket, as they say, but now he's elevating her to one of the harvesters and saying, look, you can go with my maidens, etc. And so here, that seems to be what this phrase is saying. V'cho tadbikim im narotai. So you should go and stay with my maidens. You should go, and it doesn't literally say stay. It says tadbakim. It says that you should attach yourselves to my young girls. The young girls here, again, I don't necessarily think that they're servant girls. I think that basically they're female harvesters, female reapers, and so he's telling her to go attach yourselves with them, and so he's elevating her status again. Now, what's her response? So let's go ahead and take a look here. Vatipol al paneha v'tishtachu arza. And so she falls on her face and she bows to the ground. Now we might say that this is it says here, and she fell on her face and prostrated herself to the ground. And so it seems that this is all throughout the Tanakh, all throughout the Hebrew Bible. And so basically, what happens is that we have all the way from the beginning with Abraham, where it says that he bows to the Bnei Chet, he bows to the sons of Heth, maybe I forget how you say it in English, but he bows to the sons of Chet. And it seems that in that scenario, that he's beholden to somebody who's taking them, he's beholden to them as they're taking him under their wing. Okay, so also where you have Abraham also bowing before Melchizedek. And he bows before him as well, as he recognizes him that he's royalty. So here it seems that there might be a double purpose, that she's bowing before him in respect, and as the one who's offering to take her in, and also she might know of him being somewhat of royalty, as he's from the royal lineage of the tribe of Judah, right, through David's what's to come, David's lineage. David is a far cry a few generations later, but either way she knows or might know of his lineage. And so then what does she say to him? She says, Vatomer Elav Madua matzasi chen be'enecha laharkireni ve'anochi nochria. And so here we kind of have a little bit of a play on words right here, which we'll get to in a second. She says to him, why have I pleased you that you should take cognizance of me? Lahakireni. Now here it says lahakireni va'anochi nochria. And you say lahakireni nochria. It has some of the same words, etc. So it seems it's a little bit of a play on words that the text is using, that the Navi Shmuel, the prophet Samuel, who's according to tradition writing about this text, that he's using a little bit of wordplay. But either way, her response is that, look, I'm a foreigner. Why should you take? So it seems that perhaps there's a double meaning here. So on the one hand, maybe she's trying to humble herself in terms of that maybe this is the protocol. This is the protocol towards somebody who's offering to take you in. It's kind of like when you're with some friends and you're at lunch and your friend offers to pay the check and you say no, let me pay. In some cultures that's actually, for instance, in Persian culture, that's actually there's even a word for that. For this kind of give and take between, somebody offering food or to pay for a meal or something, and then somebody, trying to say, no, let me pay, and et cetera, et cetera. So that could be door number one. Door number two, a second Inyan, a second concept that could be happening is maybe she's just a little suspicious. Look, I'm just some foreign girl who's a destitute girl. Why are you paying attention to me? So it seems that maybe, she's thinking to herself, paying attention to me, in the sense that, okay, well, there's something fishy going on here. And at the same time, she's meaning it kind of outwardly to say that, a gesture of, let's say, humility. Okay, so back up here to what Rashi says, by the way, up in verse 9. So here I'm going to go ahead and the Hebrew Rashi here. Let's go ahead and look. As Rashi here, what does she say? What does he say? He says something. He has some intrigue about the vessels, and so that's pulling up. Give it just a quick second. Sorry, my connections. Okay. Anaych pasadei asher yiksarun. The achrein halot. Okay, so that's fine. V'samis v'halacht el hakeli v'shasis. And so if you're thirsty, go to the vessels and get something to drink. And so that's right here the divrei matchil. She says halacht el hakelim. Im timsei el tachlimim meleches ulashtos mikeli hamayim asher yishvaun hana'arim. And so what does he say here? He says back to the English. Just a moment. Sorry, kind of going back and forth. My connection's a little slow. My computer's giving me a little bit of problems. So basically, he says here, if you're thirsty, you may go to the vessels, and if you're thirsty, do not be ashamed. Alti kalmi, he says, and drink from the vessels of water that the young men will draw. Okay, so this is again what he's talking about. So again, he's trying to honor her, he's trying to elevate her status, etc. Okay, so then what's Boaz's response here? So Boaz has a response, and he says, "Vayan Boaz v'yomer lah, who God li." And he responds, Boaz replied to her and said, "It has been told to me." Now this phrase, who godly, is a little bit of a interesting phrase that shows up a lot in Tanakh. And basically what he's saying is that I've heard rumors, or it's been told. So it seems that he knows of her. Kol asher asis es chamoseach mos ishech v'ta'atzvi avich v'imech ve'eretz melodotech v'telchi el am asher lo yedata tim'ol shloshim. And so what's happening here? So there's a couple of different things happening. So first of all, let's go ahead and translate. He says, it has been told to me all that you did for your mother-in-law. Okay. If I have chamosech right there. Achrei mosi sheikh. After the death of your husband, after your husband's death. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at that phrase. So basically it says that she didn't, v'ta'azvi avich v'imech, the eretz melodotech. Sound like that you've left your father and your mother and your native land. So who does this sound like? This sounds like Abraham, right? Lech lecha me'artzecha melodotech avicha, etc. So go for yourself, or go forth from your lands, from your people group, from your father's house, etc. And so basically what's happening, it looks like Shmuel is putting words into Boaz's mouth, or literally maybe this is what Boaz responded to her. But basically he's saying, I guess if you want to say it, it's resembling Abraham. So what is she? She's the female Abraham. And so just as if we look at it a little bit in a midrashic or allegorical sense, what's happening is it seems that Abraham was the first Hebrew, as we all know. And so he was an Ivri, he crossed the river, he's crossed over, might mean. And so he was somebody who's ever Hayarden, or ever, not a Yarden, ever Hanarot. He's crossing over the rivers, right? The Euphrates and the Tigris, I think you said, but anyways, the Euphrates River. And so from Mesopotamia, and he's crossing over to another land that God's going to show him. And so he's the first Ivri, he's the first Hebrew. And here it seems that this is language of her leaving her people, leaving her God, or gods as it might be, and going to a people that she didn't know, as he says, V'telechi el am asher lo yadat. Okay, to a people, you went to a people that you did not know, v'tim'ol shilshom, and that you basically that you forsake or forsook the people for the forever, basically. And so basically he's saying that, okay, so what happened is ostensibly she forsook everything, and now she's going to, joining herself to another people group. Okay, now what does he say to her? Shalem Adonai po'aleich utchi. Hello, hello. Up. Looks like we might have audio back again. Let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, looks like the audio is strong here. I'm just going to um, text my technical staff here. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Okay, looks like it's good here. And let me go ahead and see. Okay, it looks it's registering that the audio is here good on my side, and I'm just waiting to hear back. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead in the meantime. Let's continue to share my screen here. Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's see here. Be able to see the screen now. Okay, looks like the audio is back. We're good. All right, so let's see here. Okay, so we were saying before the cutout, what does he say? He says, "Yishalem Adonai po'alech," that Hashem shall pay you, reward you for your deeds. He maskurtech, and that he may reward you fully. Me'im Hashem Elokei Yisrael, from the Lord God of Israel, Asher ba'as lechasos tachas kanfav. Under whose wings you have. So as I was saying before, it seems that in the ancient Near East, the way that it happened was when you have a foreign woman, and she marries a man of a different religion or a different region or different area or something like that, that she takes on the religion of the man. So there was no really conversion as you and I might know it, and to say that Ruth converted, it seems a little bit anachronistic. It seems not necessarily how it worked in those times. More so, we see with both ways. So we see, for instance, Zipporah with Moshe, right? Zipporah was a Midianite. She was a Midianite woman, and that when she married Moshe, she took on his religion, and you can say she conversion as you and I might know it today. And then the other way, when you have the blasphemer at the end of Parshat Emor in the book of Leviticus, where it says that he's the son of an Egyptian man, a Mitzri, and he's the son of an Ivriya, he's the son of a Hebrew woman, okay, an Israelite, if you will. And so it seems that he's neither fish nor fowl. He's, on the one hand, not really an Israelite, but on the other hand, maybe not really an Egyptian. So it seems that he doesn't have a tribe, he doesn't have a place, and according to the sages, that's why he blasphemed. And for whatever reason, he was punished, and he was actually given capital punishment. Anyways, that whole incident not for now. But all I'm doing is trying to point out that it seems that the woman took on the religion of the husband. So, but this phrase here is very, very important. Asher ba'as lechasos tachas kanafav. Why is it important? Under whose wings you have come to take shelter? Because all throughout rabbinic literature, both ancient and more modern, you have this phrase coming under the wings of the Shekhinah, under the wings of God's presence, as conversion language. Okay, and the source for that conversion language, taking refuge under God's wings, is right here. So what does she say? And she goes on, she says, Vatomer be'enecha Adoni, and so let me find favor in your sight, my Lord. Ki nechamtani v'chi dabarta alev shivchaticha v'anochi lo iyeh ke'echa shivchosecha. And she said, my Lord, for you have comforted me, and you have spoken to the heart of your handmaiden. So he spoke very kindly to her, right? And she says, but I'm not worthy of being one of your handmaids. Again, she's trying to be a little bit, trying to have some humility, or perhaps that was part of the protocol. Unclear what's happening there. And so let's see here. And so let's go ahead and take a look at what Rashi says, the Hebrew Rashi. So give it just a quick second for it to load here. And while that's loading, I'll go ahead and just make another comment about Ruth here. And it's another kind of bomb question, if you will. And so he's elevating her to the status of one of his workers. But why doesn't he say, you're Naomi's daughter-in-law? Or take them in at that point. So I have a couple suggestions about that, but first let's go to the Rashi. It says, Lo yeh ke'echa shivchotecha. And he says, Eini chashuva ke'echas min hashivchos shelecha. She says, I'm not as important as one of your maidservants. Okay? And so basically here, let's go ahead and wait till the Rashi pulls up here. I'm not as worthy or as important, she says, chashuva, as one of your handmaidens. So again, so Rashi is basically just underscoring the idea here that she has some kind of humility that she's displaying. And so what does Boaz say? Vayomer lah Boaz, le'es ha'ochel, gishi, halom ve'echal min halechem, v'tavalt v'dalt pitech, b'chometz. Go ahead and take this phrase up to here. And Boaz said to her at mealtime, come here and partake of the bread and dip your morsel in vinegar. Now, what is he saying here? He's saying, come and partake of the bread, right? As we see here, it's halechem, v'tavalt pitech, right here. So it seems that what is he doing? That not only is he feeding her lunch, right, if you will, and he's feeding her with all of the, trying to get my straight. Okay. It seems that not only is he feeding her along with all of his servants, but what he's also doing is some delicacies. He says v'tavalt pitech bechometz, and take this pitech, which either can mean just a piece of bread, or it comes by the way we get the word pita from that. And either go ahead and dip a little piece of this bread, or perhaps it was some other kind of delicacy of some kind of special bread or something of that nature. And so he tells her to dip it in vinegar. And so I've even heard that perhaps it was kind of what we would know of modern times, like some kind of hummus, some kind of Mediterranean dip that we would use today. So either way, it seems that he's, number one, taking her in with all the rest of the servants of the house, and it seems that he's feeding her delicacies. And he says, what does he say? V'teshev mitzad hakotzrim v'yitzbat lah kali v'tochal v'tizbah v'tosar. And he says, so she sat down beside the reapers, and he handed her parched grain, a kali, and she ate and was sated and left over. Okay? And so basically just narrating for us what happened. He has a couple questions here on what's happening. So as it's pulling up, again, we still have our question. So he's elevating her to a status of one of his workers, but why not one of his relatives? Okay? And so we might go ahead and make a suggestion. Let's go ahead and work through the text a little bit. Maybe we'll get through a few more verses. Okay. So here, what do we say? V'tavalt pitech bechometz, right? That's the divrei hamatchil of Rashi, the opening words of Rashi's commentary. He says, "Mekan she'achometz yafei lafeit." And so, what does he say? He says that from here we see that chometz, vinegar, is kind of like a delicacy. Let's see how they translate the Rashi here in the English. From here we derive that vinegar is beneficial for a heat wave. Okay, so that's fine. And so then what does he say continuing on? Go ahead and just pull it up one more time. And here we go. V'yitzbat lah kali. And so he gives her a piece of parched grain. He says, V'yoshet lah, v'ein lav d'miyon, b'mikre ella b'lashon mishne, achraim, v'soch beis atzivita. Okay, so let's see here how they're translating that in English. Probably will give a better translation than I can. And so he has a little bit of intrigue on this word right here. It says la. Okay, so what does it mean veitzbatla? And so he says, okay, he says he handed her. He says there's no similar word in the Bible, but in the language of the Mishnah, and we have the back and the interior and the handle. It says beis hatzvita, as you see right here, the back of the handle. So basically, what is this trying to say is that maybe it's kind of a unclear, I guess, what Rashi's comment is saying, other than to say it's a word that's really a unique word that's used here, and perhaps it's showing, how he's handing it to her. He's handing it to her with some kind of honor, etc. Let's go ahead and continue on. Lalakit. V'yitzav Boaz esna arav lemor gam ben haomrim tilaket v'lo taklimuha. And so she arose to glean, and Boaz ordered his servant, saying, "Let her glean among the sheaves, and do not embarrass her." And continuing on, v'gam shol tashlu lah min ha-tzavasim v'zavtim ha-valikta v'lo sigaruba. Right here. And also pretend to forget some of the bundles for her and leave it that she may glean, and don't scold her. Okay, so Rashi's asking again a question. He says, Shol tashlu. And so he basically says, what? So Shol tashlu, it comes from the word basically to ask. And so here it's saying, you shall not forget. Pretend that you are forgetting, I guess you could say here. And then he goes through and looks at the Targum. Shgaga, inadvertence, is shalusa. Here he's saying it's similar to the Aramaic word, and similarly, he also looks at a phrase in 1 Samuel. He says hashal for the error. Another explanation, an expression in Deuteronomy: your olive tree will cast off, you shall its fruit. And so basically, it seems like it's language of asking. What Rashi's doing is he says, no, it's actually language of forgetting. So basically, kind of forgetting, and you're forgetting, you shall forget. In other words, which is just a Hebrew idiom. In other words, he's basically saying, pretend to forget. Make as if you're dropping more sheaves than really are. Okay, and again, so Rashi's asking another question. He says, Min ha-tzavasim, from the tzavasim. So tzvas, what is that word here? So here he's again saying, oh, these are like the smaller sheaves, and he's finding a similar expression again in the language of the Mishnah. It looks like here in Erosin, perhaps, if he found them to fill in pairs, tzavasim, or in bundles. So again, the Book of Ruth has some unique words here, and this is basically what he's pointing out. And let's go ahead and just finish up with a few more verses here. V'tilaket basadeh ad ha'arev, and so she continued gleaning until the evening. V'tachbot es asher liketa v'hi ke'efa se'orim. And so she gleaned in the fields at evening, and she beat out what she had gleaned, and there's about an ephah of barley. And so the ephah is just a measurement. It's like a bushel, or perhaps maybe a couple bushels. I can't remember exactly. Maybe tomorrow what I'll do is I'll look it up, and we'll go ahead and make sure what's happening here. Vatisa v'tova, and so she carried it, and she came she came to the city. And she came to her mother-in-law. Es asher liketa v'totzei v'titen lah, es asher hosira misva'a. And she took it and gave to her what she had left over, being in order to satiation. Okay, so I'm narrating a little bit of what happened. So Boaz, told his the reapers, the harvesters, a little bit on the down low, hey, make sure she gets a little bit more than some of the other poor people there. And so basically says that she had an ephah, which is a whole bushel of grains, and instead of maybe of just like a sack of grains, she has a lot, basically enough maybe to feed her and her mother-in-law and have leftovers. So again, let's go ahead and go back to the text here. And what I want to do is I want to go back here, my sharing, and so you can see my smiling face here. And I want to go ahead and suggest a few things. So in other words, okay, so our bomb question that we were kind of going through here was, why did Boaz not take her and Ruth and Naomi in? Why didn't he take them in and feed them? After all, it seems that Naomi was perhaps his cousin, as the sages understand it, that she married her uncle. So, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, she married her uncle. I'm sorry. So Boaz would be one of her uncles, something like that. I don't know if I'm getting all the familiar relationships. But again, my question, why didn't he take them in? And when he sees Ruth, why doesn't he say, oh, okay, I know who you are. And so, forget about, being one of my hired staff. Forget about being, one of the poor people who gleans in the field. Instead, why don't I elevate you to the status of one of my relatives? As it's been suggested, and according to maybe at a midrashic level, it seems that what's happening here is him telling her not to go to other fields is basically akin to saying, don't forsake the people group and the religion now that you've taken on. In other words, stay here. But what he's doing, as in any good convert, if you will, quote unquote, is he's basically trying to see her character. And he's testing her just a little bit. And he's saying, okay, is this somebody who's worthy of being in such a high prestigious family? And, after all, she's a Moabitess, and, she came from a different, from a different country, and she's forsaken them. So, what's going on here? So it seems that he's still kind of testing her and a little bit unsure as to how everything's going to play out. And so what we want to go ahead and do is tomorrow we'll finish the balance of the chapter and then go into chapter 3. And God willing, we'll be able to finish before Shavuot next week. And we'll see that this is a very auspicious Megillah that we're reading. Not only is it auspicious in the sense that we read this Megillah for Shavuot, and it's understood that Shavuot is the time of the anniversary of King David, and other reasons here. Shavuot is an important holiday for the giving of the Torah, of course, and for the giving of the Ruach, and the more the times of Yeshua and the early Yeshua followers. But not only that, but it seems here that Ruth, being of the lineage of royalty, being taken in by the royal lineage of the tribe of Judah, that she's obviously one of the ancestors, one of the foremothers of Melech David and Mashiach himself as well. So as we see, as we're celebrating the giving of the Ruach, which is the promise that our Master gave to all of his early followers, that we have this stronger, even a stronger Messianic connection with the Book of Ruth, as her being one of the foremothers of the Mashiach himself. And so we see that it elevates this reading of Megillat Ruth, of the Megillah of Ruth, of the scroll of Ruth. And so God willing that in this upcoming Shavuot, that we can have the ultimate blessing, and we should all be able to have the schus, have the merit of having Mashiach Tzidkenu, our righteous Messiah, come back to us and take us all to Yerushalayim. And God willing, we could celebrate Shavuot with the proper